If you're working on somebody who's in a car wreck, maybe you can grab that out and put that on, make yourself a little more visible, right? Small things like that helps to reduce our risk, make it a little more manageable for us to do this, because it's going to be dangerous. If you're a hero, you are accepting a certain amount of risk on yourself, right? You could die. I would rather not.
Mountain Man Medical has comprehensive but compact trauma kits with name brand quality components. They also have discounts available for firearms instructors, teachers, veterans, and others. Please go check them out at get-asp.com/mountainman and thank them for sponsoring today's video.
I would love to save somebody's life and then everybody pat me on the back. That'd be great. You know, I don't want to just die and that be the end of it. So what I would like to do is try to make it as safe as possible for me. It's not going to be 100% safe, but as safe as possible. How do we make this safer? Can I wear a reflective vest? Maybe there's a bad guy out there. I don't know where he is. Can I drag my casualty to a safer location? Can I lock that door and barricade it so that I can focus? I'm not going to be focused on this guy if there's a threat out here, because that's my main priority, is my safety, the safety of my casualty. So I'm not going to be working on this guy if he's bleeding out and I don't know where that threat is. But if I can drag him somewhere, close and lock that door, barricade, maybe I've got somebody there with a pistol as overwatch or something like that, maybe I'll be feeling a little bit safer then. But I want to make it as safe for me as possible. Firearm safety rules apply in combat even more than on the range. Sometimes I've heard it said that, once you're in combat, you don't need to pay attention to firearm safety rules, right? You're shooting people, right? So that's not the case. They matter even more, especially if you've got people laying on the ground in front of you and you're not used to paying attention to where people are and that kind of stuff. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. We don't want to make things worse. We want to try to make things better. So there's two main types of care. Care under fire. This is where bullets are constant, they're going, right? This is a very dangerous situation, and bullets are flying. This is when the combat is hot. In this phase, I'm not going to be doing anything medical except applying tourniquets to major bleeding. So if I see blood coming down the leg, I'm going to jump on, I'm going to apply a tourniquet, and that's it. And I'm going to get back in the fight, because
you're still a threat.
There's still a threat. The best battlefield medicine is fire superiority. I need to be shooting the bad guy too. As many people as we got on guns as possible. So in this care under fire phase, I'm not doing a lot. I'm going to put on one tourniquet as high and tight as possible and hope that works. If it doesn't, that's the game we play, right? It's kind of shitty. It's not very much fun sometimes. But I'm going to hop on, I'm going to put that tourniquet on high and tight, and I'm going to shoot the bad guy. After I'm reasonably certain the bad guy's been shot and I'm safe, next is what we're going to go into. It's called the tactical field care phase. So in this phase, I feel reasonably sure that the scene is safe enough for me to focus on my casualty. I can shift my focus from the battlefield down to my casualty. I don't want to have my head down here working on somebody when there's a threat around, right? Say I walked into a gas station and find someone bleeding out onto the linoleum, and I immediately jump down and start working on this guy, and I don't see the guy who'd stabbed him comes up and says, no, I wanted that bitch to die. Stabs you in the neck too, right? That's happened before. Being an EMS worker is very dangerous. I think it's Texas, maybe Texas, somewhere. I was just talking to somebody who was working a rig. They said that they had just been allowed to start carrying weapons as EMTs, which is the first time I've heard of that. Usually they don't allow that. And so yeah, I think it was Texas that they're starting to allow that now. If possible, we want to try to secure those weapons. Trying to get a weapon off of a cop is going to be a kind of a rough day there, right? So this is a very sticky situation. So being aware that your casualty could be a potential threat to you, even though you're there to help them, that's an important thing to think about. Especially when you run their pockets, make sure you're going through and making sure that they don't have stuff in there, like screwdrivers. People get stabbed with screwdrivers more than any other instrument. So pay attention to anything that could be a potential weapon. Snag that up and keep that for yourself too. In the tactical field care phase, this is where we feel pretty safe. Maybe we've got cops there now, or maybe I've drugged this guy into some place and I pushed a refrigerator in front of the door. I'm like, all right, I feel pretty comfortable in here. Now I can turn my attention away from the battlefield where the threat is, and then down to my casualty, make sure I'm giving this a good focused examination and I don't miss any wounds. Because wounds are easy to miss. You can think that you have patched this guy up perfectly. You hop on, you controlled that bleeding with a tourniquet, and you're sitting there, good to go. And then there's that one sneaky little wound you weren't paying attention to, and he's just steadily bleeding out into the grass, right? So we want to make sure that we are checking our casualties over very closely from head to toe, making sure that we're catching everything. So the way that we're going to do that is we need to get eyes on the wound. So make sure that we can see what it is that we're working with. One of the things that I'll see in a lot of the body cam footage is the officers will get into a shooting and they'll jump on the person and apply a tourniquet. They'll see blood running down the leg, so they'll apply the tourniquet high and tight, and then they'll stand back and wait for EMS to arrive, confident that they've saved the day, but in reality, that bullet was just a little higher than that tourniquet, and that tourniquet's not actually doing anything. And they've literally done nothing but apply a tourniquet, and that person's just going to bleed out into the grass. So we need to get eyes on the wound when it's safe to do it, right? We're not doing this in the care under fire phase. Bullets are flying, my job is to shoot that bad guy, that's all I'm concerned about. But if I get the opportunity, I come back, I'm like, oh, I need to double check. Okay, I put a tourniquet here, lots of blood leaking down, I'm going to tear those pants open and get a good eye on what's going on, and make sure that what I've done is actually doing its job. If it's not, we need to fix that. If it is, good. Then we go on to check the casualty over from head to toe, make sure they're not bleeding anywhere else, and we need to fix that. So getting eyes on the wound is very important. Only if you've got time to do it, though. So what are the best ways to do it? One of my favorite ways is, of course, trauma shears. I'm sure you've all seen them. I should have gotten them out, but I like trauma shears the most as my personal cutting tool because you can use it for a lot of other things as well. It's a multi-use item, right? Some people like strap cutters. That's fine, you can use strap cutters if you like, but strap cutters are kind of only good for one thing, right? It's not very useful for a lot of other things. So I tend to like my trauma shears a little bit better. So my favorite ones are these throwaways. These cheap, they're not like they won't work. They work. You can cut pennies in half and stuff like that with them. But what I like about these is you can throw them away. They're very cheap. Now a lot of people will run those Raptor shears by Leatherman. Those are like 70, 80 bucks, right? And in my experience, I've cut people out of their clothes. This is full of meat and gristle and blood. I'm not going to get my toothbrush in there to scrub this thing out, right? I'm just going to pitch these. I'm just going to pitch them. I'm not going to play around with it. I'm going to buy myself another $4 pair, and I'm going to have a good day, right? So 70, 80 bucks every time you do that with a pair of Raptor shears, that gets a little bit pricey. So in my opinion, I really like the disposables the best. But if you want to run those Raptor shears, no problem with me. I just don't have the capital for it. Strap cutter, that's a great option. Not quite as versatile. Can't do as many things with it. But that might be what you want to have. No problems with me. Works just fine.